Well, it is recording.
Hello.
Damn,
Your
what a
Uber
way
is here, I
to
guess.
start a podcast. So, here's what I was thinking, right?
Ah.
Is what usually happens is people become friends and then they decide to make a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are making podcasts.
Then becoming friends.
Probably.
I mean,
But
possibly.
the thing is, like, making a podcast is fine, right? Like, we've decided that, damn, somehow what we say is important enough to make it. Like, where this arrogance comes from is what I think. Like, why do I think what I have to say is important?
Hmm. Well, I mean,
Hmm.
something made you feel that whatever there is that we have to talk about is something that many people can either relate to, or that stuff that we can talk about that we don't know about each other as well. So it's kind of like a win-win where other people know and we know about each other.
Hmm.
Plus, it's
Oh,
chill. Like, I think the chill aspect matters.
yeah. Or we're just like super narcissistic.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, if you're
Yeah,
content
I feel
creators,
like
I think.
true. That is very true. Like content creators are very narcissistic. That is so true.
But how
Most
bad
of
is that?
it is it comes naturally though, right? Like that sort of, I don't know.
Like the narcissism part?
Yeah, just the narcissism part. I feel like it's not narcissist like not the pure definition of narcissism, but it's still
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of uh what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of confidence in yourself that like every content creator who tries to be a content creator shows.
Hmm. Yeah. That does make sense. But would you say that is like some sort of a persona that people have, or does it like, because like for example, right? Yeah, I've been hanging around with a lot of content creators lately.
Hmm.
So it's very easy for people to ease into the whole like, oh, this is me, I'm streaming, or I'm making a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're completely acting fake, but they're upping their hype or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's just because we are surrounded by a bunch of content creators. In general, I think a lot of people still are not capable of like doing that. Like an
Yeah.
average person would be like, oh, it's a little weird to do it. So so like the narcissism that like quote unquote narcissism that
Huh.
content creators have, is
Huh.
it is it something that's like in every person that comes out through content creation, or is it something you build as you make content? Like, what do you think comes first?
Hmm. That's actually a good question. Bo Burnham,
Mm-hmm.
the comedian, right? The stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
He has some really good takes on like content creation and just like people in entertainment business, and like you should definitely check out this song from his call like uh oh god damn it, what's the name of the song? Art is Dead.
Uh-huh.
It explains what I also feel about content creators or just entertainers. But I feel like a lot of entertainers, right? Like entertainers who like it is natural to them. I think
Mm-hmm.
that sort of uh, self-importance is always has been there, and it just comes out. It just enhances itself when they actually create content or become performers
Yeah.
in whatever field they are in. It just like enhances that sort of self-importance.
So
So
so it's
yeah,
like something everyone kind of has, but it comes
e-
out through.
yeah, maybe some people don't have it enough, and they just go by their life, do the other things. Like I
Yeah.
don't know.
I think somewhere there's a need for validation behind content creation, right? Like
Oh
why
yeah, 100%.
why are you doing it? Because it's meant to be entertainment.
Yep.
So I was thinking about this recently, but just entertainment in general, right? Before it used to be people would watch only stuff like on TV or like DVDs or like cassettes and stuff.
Huh.
So entertainment industry was very professional, and you had to
Huh.
do a lot of stuff. But now it's become like literally any individual can strive to entertain people if they want to, with
Hmm.
streaming or making YouTube. So I think somewhere in that difference what ended up happening is that I don't know if the entire, like initially the entire entertainment industry was just built with that need for validation, but maybe more of like, a part of business, like this is how business is. Whereas now
Yeah.
it feels like people do it to feel more like, like not just to make others laugh,
Hmm.
but to also like feel good that others are laughing at them. At least that's how I am.
Huh.
So I'm stuck.
Yeah, I see that. Your character is just running away.
Oh
It's like
shit.
it's not stopping. It's just running away. That's how I feel
Uh,
about
mhm.
being called an entertainer. I feel like
Yeah.
running away from that sort of problem, or like being called a content creator entertainer, because I really am not. I
Mm.
I do things like streaming and stuff because it's something that I enjoy. That's also selfish for sure, but it's something that I absolutely just love doing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm a content creator because like I don't consider what I do content creation. I'm just
Mm.
you know getting on a call with a bunch of people and talking and just having fun and making some shit up for my own entertainment purposes more than anything else.
So you're saying that you wouldn't call yourself a content creator?
Oh no, definitely not. I
So what
definitely
would you call a
discourage it.
content creator? Like what is your definition of a
I feel like a
content creator?
content creator is someone who wants to be by definition a creator that earns money out of it in some way or the other.
Or like a career choice?
A career choice, yeah, basically. Like a professional.
Huh.
Hmm. Or like they try to upload more videos on YouTube, for example, or TikTok, or whatever platforms, right?
Yeah, like they market it, they
Yeah,
like
even
try to make
Twitch.
a earning out
Like
of it.
Ludwig, for example, when he was on Twitch, was a proper content creator.
Yeah, for sure. So you think it's the mentality that makes someone a content creator?
Oh yeah, for
That's
sure, yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that does make sense
Or
because
maybe that's
I
just my mentality about the concept of content creation.
no, no, it does align with how I think of it too. Because
Hmm.
to me, I used to believe. I mean, I used to call myself a content creator because
Huh.
even though I didn't make any money out of it, I still
Huh.
felt like it's what I'm striving to do. Like I'm trying to put content out there. This is
Huh.
where I want my career to go. I don't know if I'll necessarily call myself that anymore
Huh.
because content creation is just something I do for fun. Like it's not. I've found other ways of like to for my career to go.
Yeah.
So this just is like something I do for fun. But at the same time, there's many people. like arguably,
Huh.
who don't really do it for like the money, right? But they're
Hmm.
still called content creators because they've been popular because they did that.
Yeah.
And so other people coin them as a content creator, whereas they don't really feel like it.
Yeah.
And I like to believe that many people would call you a content creator too because they watch
E-
your content.
yeah, which is like fair enough for them and on them, but like if
Hmm.
ever someone calls me, I sort of like correct them. Like I don't like being called one because like in my head, content creation is something that is way more serious than what I am doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like disrespect for people who actually put in a lot of efforts into making content for like
Mhm.
a livelihood or just like even if it didn't start off like that for a lot of people. Eventually, once they know people like what they are doing, they will obviously try to monetize it. Right? That's just life,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
capitalism 101.
But speaking of like what you would want to be called yourself
Hmm.
as, that is something I always used to wonder about myself. Like there is something, a lot of people in general, when you ask them, tell me about yourself, a very common thing they start with is like, I mean, their name, but after that they go with their career,
Huh.
right? They're like, oh, I'm this, I'm a doctor, I'm this, I'm an engineer, or
Huh.
I work in research or whatever.
Huh.
So is that something that has been like kind of like society has engraved on us to have that be our identity, or do you think most people care to hear about careers in general? Like where do you think it started, you know like I don't think it was always like this. I think it's something more of the modern world where we introduce ourselves with our careers, because back in the day when everyone were farmers, I don't even
Hmm.
know if they would like talk about what they did, I guess,
I think they probably would have. Like I feel like a lot of people back in the day took a lot of pride in like their profession.
Hmm.
Is what I feel like. Because like let's
But
say
would
like
you say your
farming for
identity
example,
is
right, was such a backbone of most countries, and they probably were
uh-huh.
like one of the most important people uh,
Oh yeah.
in the society. Like proper farmers who were like providing food and shit.
Yeah, but if you're in a village and like everyone's a farmer, I
Hmm.
guess, like,
Yeah,
I
maybe
mean,
not
they
in
mostly
this
talk about
sort
where
of
you're from,
society
right?
anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a cool car.
Because I
Probably not
think back
anymore.
then,
Yeah, now I feel like farmers are not given as much value as they should be. But that's a whole
yeah, for
different
sure.
topic.
Yeah. Because back then they mostly would be like, "Oh, what land do you hail from?" Or some shit like
Yeah,
that. Like they talk about where their house was or their family was, rather than, because you can just see it, look at them, and tell that they're a farmer just like you. And so that was their identity, was like their place of birth. Now
yeah,
our identity isn't really that. It's more about what our job is, I guess.
yeah.
But like it's more of a very philosophical question. Like how would you describe your identity? Would it be based on your, you know, political compass? Would it be based on your job, or like
I feel like
your
it depends on
culture?
who is asking for me a lot of time. Like, and
Hmm.
what like sort of environment I am in. Like, in for example, if I'm in like a environment with my relatives, with there are like a lot of elders and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So in that way, I'm always not always, but recently I've been like super cheeky about my political like beliefs when I'm around them, just to like rile them
Hmm.
up a little bit. So
Yeah.
in that situation, I'll be like, this is where I stand, right? Like, blah blah blah. My name is so and so, and I probably go with like my profession because that's the easiest thing, right? Like I'm a clinical psychologist, so that's
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
where it goes. But like when it comes to like anything further, it's just basically me telling them. Uh, so, uncle, what are your thoughts on like this? Like just trying to sort of establish where I stand politically. And earlier it used to be a lot of like because I wanted to have this sort of conversation with them where I talked about things that they didn't agree with, but
Mhm.
later it just became like a sort of space where I just wanted to make sure that if they're gonna like have any sort of interest talking to me, they should know where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Because like uncles will always talk about politics, no matter what.
Oh yeah, that's
Uh,
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's something they enjoy doing as a pastime or something.
yeah, for sure. So like in that situation, I'll probably like try to establish my identity of more of like a person who is like quote unquote politically aware. But then comes, uh, give me an example of any other situation, for example.
Like a
Uh,
introduction scenario,
oh,
like a scenario where you have to introduce yourself.
yeah,
You
yeah,
want examples of that?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, let's see. What if you're going on a date? Would you also
Right.
start
So
with your profession?
on date, I would start with, and this is again recently, right? Because like
Yeah.
humans have all this life, like there's something called schemata, which is like all your life experiences till now that teach you to like perceive the world in a particular way, perceive yourself in a particular way,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So with all of that given, now when I introduce myself to someone, I if I wanna date someone, it'll probably be more of how emotionally available I am.
Mm.
That becomes like one of my identities. Like this is how I am. This is how open I am. This is how expressive I am emotionally, and
This
that's
is how
what
you
is it.
deal with stress and all that. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
This is how I react to. This is how I'll be. This is something that I am. This is something that I might change or trying to change, trying to work on. It's more it's more emotional way of trying to connect with someone or trying to establish yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
would you say that emotional equals like intimate? So it would kind of make sense to be more emotional with someone who can end up being your partner.
yeah, yeah,
I think that's why you do that.
yeah. Probably, yeah,
Yeah. So in that case, yeah, it does make a lot of sense.
yeah.
I think I'd say some like so for me, I don't have a very clear like what you say object like I don't have a very clear. Wait, oh shit! I should invite you, or you'll get shot down here. Uh, I don't have a job per se, right? Like I make games, and want to. I specifically chose not to have a job and
Oh,
like be a corporate slave. I mean, I don't actually think they're being slaves, but one can argue.
I
And
mean,
so
yeah, that's
I,
again a whole different argument.
yeah, exactly.
Probably are
So
called, should be called slaves,
yeah,
but
so
yeah.
I chose not to go down that path. So when
Oh,
people ask me, like, tell me about yourself or like, what do you do?
hmm.
For now, I just say I'm a game developer. But technically, it's not my career yet either. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know when I would call something a career when it's like something that's the thing that's financially stabilizing me.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah.
it gives me
But this is
money.
something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, exactly. It's the
Yeah.
closest or like the most likely to end up being my actual career.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
at
Yeah.
that point, why not just say that I'm a game developer?
Hmm.
Like, no one
Yeah.
really asks how much you earn. I mean, again, relatives could, but I luckily don't have those kind of relationships with people where they ask how much I earn.
No, yeah.
So for me, identifying with my career was always something that I found annoying, because
Hmm.
it wasn't a mainstream thing that I did. And every time I talked about it, I felt more like, not in touch with the people around me, because everyone around me has a job and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So I usually keep that part short. Like, it just ends up being small talk to me about job, and the conversation usually leads to, oh, what kind of games do you make, or what games do you like. So
Hmm.
I'm glad that that ends up happening.
Yeah. A
Some
lot.
people, for some reason, people get really surprised or like interested when I say game developer. They're like, oh, I think that's just an Indian thing, though. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably a very Indian thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's not something that comes straight up in your mind, right? Like game
Yeah, like how
developer.
often do you hear someone being a game dev? I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It used to be a lot like that earlier with like clinical psychology or just a psychologist. But I think things have improved so much in the last 5 6 years,
Hmm.
and I use the word improve very loosely.
Awareness, you mean, right? Like in
Yeah,
terms of
the
awareness.
awareness has sort of increased for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's what identity, like, it kind of makes sense. The career is something tangible, right? You can't like be like, oh, tell me about yourself, and like, oh, I'm a capitalist or a moralist, or like,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense to really say that. But oftentimes when you hear people talk, you can kind of tell where they're like, heading.
Yeah. I just got CEO proximity bonus. Imagine if this was a real life thing, where if you were like close
Sitting
to your
next to your
CEO all
boss.
the time, then you would get like a raise.
Well, this is just an XP, so does that mean you're growing older sitting next to your boss?
Well, I feel like it's like no. I like to think it's like a knowledge.
Oh,
You're
you're gaining
learning more.
experience sitting next
Yeah,
to a boss.
experience
Yeah, you're more likely to get hired abroad now.
probably. Yeah.
That's the whole other thing about jobs. Having experience to get jobs, but not getting jobs because you don't have experience.
Yeah. That's something that I would never relate to. Like I heard this from a lot of friends, and of course memes and everything and stories, right?
Yeah.
But there's something that I've never experienced. I probably won't experience because I've decided one thing is that I'll never really work for anyone
Oh.
or under anyone because that's just not my thing.
Yeah, would you say yours is more like freelancer kind of stuff? Or like, I mean, I wouldn't know if you can call it freelancing either, right? I mean, maybe it is.
Hmm.
Because there is no third party, right? It's just you and clients. Like,
Yeah,
there's no
for me it
organization.
is like basically a private thing. It is a freelance
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
honestly, there's something cool about doing that, but I guess it's a lot of pressure too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like
Like,
financially,
everything would be your
it is
fault.
so
It's not
stressful all the time.
financially.
Yeah, I mean financially also it's like there's no job security, right?
Oh, true, true. Like
Yeah,
no
things
benefits
can
and
go
all that.
south
Yeah,
anytime.
true, true.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a good point. Because
yeah,
there's something I wanted to do too. I wanted to like freelance basically, but
yeah.
the freelance is such a common dream for everyone now, right? Like,
Oh, it's become the
because I think,
Facebook of ideas.
yeah, I think it's like something about freelance and individualism that's like very, very in at the times for like 2022 now. Like in this generation, people want to be unique,
Hmm. But
and
only
they want
because
to.
if people do it a lot, it doesn't necessarily be a bad thing, though, right?
No, no,
Like
definitely
having
not,
your own individuality.
for sure.
Or,
But
hmm.
what can end up happening is now everyone wants to do that, so like it's super saturated,
Hmm.
right? Like I've seen this happen myself. You can even take the example of content creation again. Like
Hmm.
the amount of people who want to be on YouTube or want to make YouTube videos is astonishingly high now.
Huh.
And there are like OG YouTubers that legit say that, don't try, like don't rely on YouTube, it's not gonna work. Like you have to
That's
be
true though.
lucky.
Yeah, that is so true. That's
Yeah,
that's true in most entertainment slash sports.
exactly.
You have to
Or
become
like any
so
sort of like
lucky.
like just freelancing in general has a lot of competition.
Hmm.
So I think that competition, though, like I have a feeling that there's some deeper connection to that, and that deeper connection is that people don't want to just keep doing the same, mainstream jobs, like the
Yeah.
office jobs and stuff like that. They want to like be, make use of their passion or do something like extra.
Hmm.
But then when everyone does it, it's
Hmm.
not unique anymore, I guess. It's still like there's nothing wrong with not being unique either, but I think if
Yeah.
being unique is what you're trying to go for, uh and you try too hard to be unique, you can end up being the sheep.
Yeah, true. I mean, unique is not always good.
Yeah, that's what I basically mean.
Yeah.
Like following what works is not a bad thing to do. Like having a job, even if it's boring, doing it because you need money, it's not a bad thing to do.
Yeah, I mean,
But
that's just surviving, right? At the end of the day, everyone just wants to survive.
yeah, exactly. But at the same time, one should always try and see
Hmm.
if they have any passion or something. I mean,
Hmm.
at least that's what I think.
Hmm.
Sometimes, don't you agree that if you're stuck doing like certain jobs,
Hmm.
working in companies, this and that for years, then it's harder to like leave that, leave that behind and like completely do something, like write a book or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And all the stories about how people who have worked for so long have gotten away from their work and now are like, I don't know, drummers, or they follow their passion after 30 years of doing office work and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a lot of luck also involved in
Yeah, for
that
sure.
too.
Yeah.
Like not everyone who is 35-year-old, 40-year-old can just change their career.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I guess personally that's why I'm trying to do all the ambitious stuff first.
Hmm, makes sense.
Do you think people wanting to be unique, do you think that's like
The Diamond Casino and
something
Resort
that
presents
stems
a
from
brand new car
insecurity?
available to win today, simply with a
Hmm,
spin of a wheel.
people trying to be unique. I think so. In some ways, yeah.
Yeah, like because for me, when I wanted to try and be unique,
Hmm.
it was more of the fact that I felt like,
Just concierge and valet services.
I
Isn't
mean,
it
I,
time
I
you
don't know.
partied with people you're
There was a
not?
lot of validation and stuff that I needed for sure,
Hmm.
but being unique was part of that. Like if I'm unique, then I'll have an interesting story to tell people.
Yeah.
But it's kind of bad to assume that other people don't have an interesting story to tell. So I think that whole mindset has some flaws to it.
Like, what about being unique that people like try so hard to do? Like, I feel like I've done this most of my life also, is to like try to uh be like the I'm not like the other guys sort of thing.
Try to
Like,
not be mainstream basically, right?
not even mainstream. It's just like in my own head I am so much better or like different, and like
Uh-huh.
I'm always trying to find little things in my head that makes me uh different than people. And I feel like that stems from insecurities. Yeah, I think it stems from a lot of self-doubt and
Or feeling like the
insecurities.
world doesn't understand you or something, right?
That
I
that's
think that
that's a
can
whole
also be.
different variable also for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but the problem is that oftentimes you have people that reinforce that thought too. Like you come across people and they're like, "Oh, you're so interesting," or like,
Hmm.
like, "Damn, I've never seen someone talk about stuff this way."
Hmm.
And when you hear those things, you start to feel like, "Oh, am I
I should
something? Am
start
I
a
someone
podcast.
special?" But is that
Yeah.
something you can relate to? Like,
Yeah.
have you heard
Mm,
people say that about you often?
Not often, but yeah. The thing with people complimenting, right? Especially like people complimenting me, is that
Hmm.
I remember compliments.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
It's like, and I feel like a lot of men, boys will sort of relate with this. Is the absolute lack of compliment that we usually get,
Yeah.
and to like actually remember the compliment. Most people do. Like I know I do. I remember the smallest of compliment if someone gives to me. Earlier, it used to be a lot of compliments coming from like women if they ever came. I used to like remember, damn. But now I think it not necessarily like I only remember compliments from women. It's
It's
both.
like if you hear any compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, any compliment. I'm like, damn, like that's great.
It's more about like how thoughtful they are when they're
Yeah,
complimenting.
I don't know how to drive this.
I can see that.
Yeah. Oh, I think I
Wait,
have
did
to
you just
get it
jump
off.
off? Oh, okay.
No, I
I
didn't.
thought but what was I gonna
Hmm.
say? Yeah, like I mean, when you talked about like guys don't get compliments much,
Hmm.
that reminded me of the fact that I've heard this. I don't know if it's completely accurate, but I've heard that even with people suffering with loneliness,
Hmm.
a lot of men end up being lonely a lot more.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I can imagine there's like many reasons to why,
Yeah.
like more competition, toxic masculinity, and all that,
Oh yeah.
feeling that you don't belong, like you're not like other men,
Hmm.
or like feeling like, oh, you don't have a girlfriend, so like you're not as cool, or your life doesn't have as much value as others, and all of those
Yeah.
sorts of mindsets.
Yep.
And so
This is a
when
courtesy
people
call from
have that, they really want to try and think that, hey, I'm not like that. I don't want to be that. I want to be someone special, and
Hmm.
maybe life is like this for me because there's something else in my destiny,
Hmm.
and then they try and do like unique stuff and resort to, I don't know, making YouTube videos that nobody might have thought of.
Hmm.
So I think that's how, like, the whole path of the insecurity and like uniqueness and all that comes from.
Hmm.
Because you're kind of like telling yourself that, hey, but the honest truth is that almost everyone has a point where they feel lonely and all that,
Yeah.
and you're not better or worse for not being
Yeah.
attractive or like not being in a relationship and all that.
For sure.
So, Mas, do you want to talk about how we
Hmm.
don't have any name for this podcast?
I was
And do
gonna
you
bring
think
it
we
up.
should, yeah, do you think we should brainstorm? How meta would it be to brainstorm what you should name a podcast in the podcast? I think people might have done it before, but you know,
Yeah, I'm sure.
you said
SAS
we don't
Meta
have to
is
be.
actually starting a podcast at this point. Podcasts are the meta now.
That yeah, that is true. I both like it and hate it.
Yeah. And I guess it's the
I
same reason that we are doing podcasts too. Like, I enjoy the idea of like, someone sharing the same sort of thought process as me, but then we are
Mhm.
also adding to the number of podcasts in this world.
So you feel like you're doing the world a favor by increasing the number of podcasts?
Nah, dude, I feel like people should do so much better with their life.
So it's not just about podcasts anymore.
I never was, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, like the reason I like podcasts is that people end up talking about a lot of shit that they wouldn't have in
That's
a
true.
in a normal
Yeah.
scenario. And at the same time, the reason I hate it is because when everyone does it, it kind of feels like it lost its charm.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very hypocritical when I say this because we are doing one too.
Exactly.
So, so you know,
But it's okay. If we acknowledge it, then it's not wrong, I guess.
exactly. Yeah, if you're aware of it, then we can
Yeah.
escape any sort of
Self
criticism.
awareness makes it better.
So yeah, it's basically like an immunity shield.
Exactly. If you're aware that you are a murderer, then it's okay, I guess.
If you're working on not being a murderer and still murdering people,
That's
I
also
guess you're
okay.
better.
Yeah.
There is no sort of disclaimer for anything you say. But to be fair, people shouldn't use podcasts as advice.
Yeah, people should
If they
not use
do, I
anything
guess
on
it's
the
their own.
internet at advice unless it's a trained professional.
Yeah, that's something we could also talk about, like accountability.
Oof.
Did you know that
Hmm.
the
Oh, Lundi Jeep.
yeah, let's go, Lundiji.
Hmm.
Like that in a lot of like clauses or like business stuff,
Oh.
at least in Germany, I think, for one example,
Hmm.
there are like certain countries where when you make a video with a sponsor and stuff, you have to mention that it's sponsored. Like you have to let people know
Are you talking
that
about like a YouTube video?
yeah, like a YouTube video.
Hmm.
There are like certain scenarios where you have to let people know that this is a sponsored video. You can actually get in legal trouble if you don't.
Hmm. Right, yeah.
So when I was talking about accountability, I was basically like thinking about that, like
Hmm.
how uh, you are meant to be more like when it comes to shit like that, it
Hmm.
needs to be a lot more laid on paper. But when it comes to shit of like YouTubers sponsoring gambling sites to kids, that 13-year-olds that watch their videos, there's like no accountability there.
Hmm.
Kind of very hypocritical.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's I have a very mixed feeling about accountability in today's age, right? Like I think now more than ever, people call out on other people's like bullshit
Right.
on the internet at least, right? Like oh, you're saying something and this is ignorant and this is offensive to someone, and you should take accountability for that. And I think that is good on one hand, but on the other
Yeah.
hand, I wonder. It's kind of like a blame game, isn't it? Like everyone's teaching others what to be accountable for, but how often are people looking at themselves?
Yeah, I feel like if we ever like actually sit back and look at ourselves and have some sort of insight
Hmm.
or have like a true insightful conversation with ourselves,
Hmm.
they'll realize how wrong they are on so many occasions about so
Yeah.
many things. You just think about the times that you've like just sat down with yourself and like thought about everything that you've done in the past. Things
Hmm.
that were cringe, things that were straight up weird, creepy, or things that were good, or
Yeah.
things that were normal, but you still have like some sort of insight into your problems. think that's what
Yeah.
we don't do enough
Oh, for sure.
because
Yeah.
it's hard.
It's hard, and also it's like it's not given as much importance. Like people, I mean, it is improving now, but I don't think that many people are aware that, hey, you should have some time to sit and contemplate and like talk to
Mm.
yourself, or like
Yeah.
because a lot of people tend to overthink, which is quite common, and anxiety and this and that. Like, I mean, I have a whole rant about people glorifying anxiety, but that's not what sitting and talking to yourself is.
Oh.
So talking to yourself more is about understanding yourself, or like understanding like why you really want this. Like, why is this making you anxious? Why is this so important to you?
Oh.
If you ask yourself those questions, I think those are the insightful conversations you have to yourself. Not like, oh, I have an exam to give. Oh, what do these people think about me? You know,
Hmm.
I think it's very common for people to think about their place in the world and like compare all the time. Oh, damn, that was good. Wow. But
Wait. What? Why did he blow up? There was
did he
a
shoot him?
Yeah, with a pistol.
It was a revolver pistol, I guess. Very powerful.
Damn. Interesting.
But
Hmm.
yeah, I think people like thinking about how others affect you or how you may seem to others.
Yeah.
That's not. I mean, it's important to sometimes think about that, but I wouldn't call that an insightful conversation.
Yeah. What are we gonna name this podcast?
Yeah, that's what I was legit thinking about that. So, when you name things,
Hmm. I'm horrible at naming things.
I like to take a long time thinking, but I don't want to spend like the entire podcast in
That's true.
brain dead silence, brainstorming what to do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of all the podcast names I've heard so far. So there's one called the Trash Taste, where there's this bunch of weebs who talk about their taste in anime, and they ironically self-aware, call it a trash taste podcast.
Yeah.
So you could do something along those lines.
Hmm.
How many words do you want on the podcast?
How many?
Words.
Can you count words?
Yeah, I mean, how big of a sentence do you want the podcast to be? Or,
Oh,
do you
the
want it
name. I'm like, in one podcast, how many times do you want us to say words? I'm like, damn.
to word count of a podcast?
Imagine.
Oh man, somewhere I feel like that could be a thing.
Sure.
But yeah,
I mean, if
do you
people can
want-
do it for like movies, like exactly how many words were in one movie, yes, it's kind of easy. But I guess they have
yeah,
scripts, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
This is unscripted, believe it or not. This whole podcast, no
Imagine.
one's planned anything.
I have
I
to be
think- I
honest, you
think
don't
they'll
really
do
have to give the disclaimer.
Yeah, I don't have to
It
mention.
It feels very scuffed anyways.
Oh,
You did.
so we should talk about this, right? The fact that we are playing GTA and doing a podcast, because it's not that we recorded. I mean, again, you can tell that we're doing a podcast literally while playing a game.
Yeah, look
The
at this guy.
reason
I'm
we-
gonna shoot this guy in the black shirt. At least I tried, but yeah.
Yeah, so as you can see, it's all live. But the reason we are doing this is because just sitting and talking didn't seem like good enough for us, Like we
That's
wanted to
true.
flex our ability to like play a video game and also
And-
talk about random stuff.
Of having a 3070 GPU.
Okay, yeah, that's more of a you thing. It's
That's
for
true.
you to flex, not for me.
But yeah, no, in like all seriousness, like I think earlier what we thought was doing like animation and something. That's something that we can always well back into, to be honest.
Yeah.
At some point in life where we can afford that. But I feel like this
Mhm.
is a much better idea from you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just thought that. Uh, I mean, we could mention that our inspiration was Midnight
Midnight Gospel,
Gospel.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
Midnight
sure.
Gospel,
What a
and we loved
beautiful
how they
pod.
did.
Yeah. You've only seen the one episode though, right? We need to watch
Yeah,
all
yeah, I've
the
only seen one.
episodes. I've seen that
Yeah.
whole season twice already.
Oh
But
damn.
yeah.
Yeah, they're very like basically like they talk about random stuff and a lot of shit is happening in the animation,
Yeah.
and
Like everything
that's
is
the main thing
chaotic,
about
right?
it.
Like this, you think this is chaotic. That's just otherworldly chaotic. But
Yeah,
that
this is
is
something
also
for them.
semi-scripted.
Yep, for sure.
That's not what we are at all.
Yeah, we basically didn't plan anything. Like we
Not
had
even the
a
topics. Shouldn't we have at least tried to discuss some topics beforehand? That is a no-no for me,
well.
right?
No, I mean there are I've heard like there are off the pill podcasts, right? Which basically means wait, I think I should oh why I can't end myself.
Oh, that's dumb.
But yeah, this is a whole podcast called Off the Pill podcast that Ryan Higa used to do, and in that I think he had a topic to start with, but then it would go literally anywhere. You know, like he didn't really plan shit. Like and that was the whole premise of that podcast.
Hmm.
And since we have done a podcast before on like your streams,
Yeah.
we we kind of realized that what we end up doing is our conversations like jump around a lot and go on different tangents. So may
Yeah.
as
Might
well
as
not.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
But the reason I mentioned the whole we play games and
Hmm.
do this podcast is because we can make the name of our podcast connected to that, right? So the word that came into my mind was like transcend, but of course it's a very, I don't know, a lot of flair in that word.
Yeah.
But like we can have the main point of the podcast being that it's not tied to us just talking.
Yeah.
We could be playing games, it could be an animation, it could be different games. We haven't thought about it yet,
Yeah.
so maybe we make that the brand of the podcast. What do you
Maybe.
think?
Not a bad
does
idea.
that help you think of
A name?
a word?
Absolutely not. Because that's
The hard
something
part
that
would,
we'll do off podcast.
yeah, we could just talk about how we're thinking of it and then end up actually thinking of it later, because or else we might be here all day.
Yeah, I don't think the listeners or the viewers are gonna get a conclusion to the name of this podcast at least.
Yeah, and I think that's the special thing about this podcast. You can't really expect something. Like you can't start this podcast and expect to have any sort of experience. You'll have an experience, but if it's a good or a bad one, it's up to you,
Yeah.
because we don't control it either.
True.
I have ideas, but the problem is you also need to make sure the name's not already taken by other podcasts.
That's
It's very
true.
fierce competition now.
Because there are so many podcasts.
Exactly.
Way too many.
I think we have the lockdown to blame for that.
Lockdowns are just self-importance.
Self-importance. Yeah, true. Guess that's the better
Mm,
reason for podcasts to exist.
yeah. Or maybe Joe Rogan.
Oh Lord. I guess he's an OG of podcasts, right? I mean, not an OG
He sort of
necessarily,
made
but
it more mainstream, I'd say. Like a
uh-huh.
lot more people got invested.
I can't
Mm.
watch his podcast.
Oh yeah, same. Comes out.
Yeah, no.
Again, I feel like here comes the another accountability thing that I wanted to say, right?
Uh
And
huh.
this happens like now. Let's say we are a we are doing podcast together, right? This is not only a my thing. This is also a you thing. It's
Yeah.
our thing, right? And now,
Yeah.
let's say our podcast somewhere in the future becomes big, copium.
Yeah.
But
Copium. Yeah.
yeah, but at that stage, I can no longer go around saying things that I feel, right? Like, for example, now I can say Joe Rogan comes out as an absolute idiot because no one really cares about our podcast right now. You're not
Yeah.
big enough. You know,
Yeah.
I can't say, I mean, to be fair, that's not a very controversial opinion. A lot of people sort of agree with that. But like, I
Yeah.
can't talk about politics, for example. And a lot of people do
Mhm.
that, right? With their, if they are part of a bigger organization, their Twitter has this bio, has this one statement: "My thoughts are my own," or "My tweets are
Mm.
my own opinion," or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like taking accountability of this and like try not to sabotage the company in that. But like, if people come for them, then people come for them. Then it doesn't really matter whatever sort of disclaimer you give.
Hmm.
If people want blood, then they probably want blood from like your company and whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what my thoughts on accountability
So
were.
you say that when we, if you get bigger, then the words have more weight. Like
Oh yeah, 100%.
people,
Yeah, the way
like
you say things, the way people perceive your words
Mhm.
amplifies.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just because so many more eyes are on you
Yep.
that a lot of different people with the different opinions will start, climbing up, and something you say can be taken completely out of context. And there's so
Hmm.
many examples of that. I don't even need to bring any actual examples.
Yep.
But yeah, yeah, I guess that is true. In a way, that's why I always think, if I do become big,
Hmm.
I don't want to ever be, uh, you know, BTS K-pop boys famous big, or Tom Holland big. Like
Hmm.
it's just way too much. It becomes so much that you sort of just stick to like being this, like even with the K-pop group, right? The
Hmm.
BTS, they have a lot of fans, right? You can hear like so much screaming going on whenever they're in any interview.
Yeah.
But do any of them know about like their, I don't know, political views, or like their views on McDonald's, or like like little things or deep things? I don't think so. And
Yeah.
it makes sense why, because they're a music band. They're not meant to like share the entire story. But
Yeah.
if they started doing that, who knows? They could have a lot of views on things that many people would hate, and they would get into a lot of trouble.
Oh, for sure. I feel like, especially in K-pop, I mean, sorry, Korea, right? In
Yeah.
the K-pop industry is what I wanted to say. Like the whole contract system is so strict that they have to follow certain things. They have to do things, whatever the agency says. All the K-pop stars, or at least most of
Mm-hmm.
the smaller K-pop stars.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like most of their lives are very controlled outside.
Yeah, and
Performance
like
also.
the more, if I become a really big deal, then like the same thing would happen. Like first of all, like very popular people have like agents and like PR groups and all that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I ever want to have that level of fame. You know, I mean, some level of fame, being completely honest, would enjoy.
Yeah,
But
100%. Yeah. Who doesn't
but like,
enjoy a little bit of uh, this attention
yeah, I
that
mean, there
comes
are a
with?
lot of people who don't want to be famous at all.
Hmm.
But I'm not one of them for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we are not. We established that we are not really narcissistic. So
I mean, we're doing
so
a
it's like,
podcast literally.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to be ever like that big of a deal. You know,
Yeah.
maybe a bit of a deal, I guess.
Hmm.
And the view is pretty nice.
It is a very nice view.
You don't see this, but I'm having a lot of
Oh, I see it.
teasing. I'm having many technical difficulties. But
It, it's literally like Tenant. Have you seen that movie? Or I haven't seen the movie, but I know the concept of going back in time and how things get reversed
oh,
because that's literally what is happening with me.
that's perfect. I
Yeah.
guess some sort of chaos. That's another thing I would say that we both have in common is that we can, you know,
Appreciate chaos.
we can appreciate chaos and we can be kind of calm about a lot of chaotic shit too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, I mean, of course, this is a video game, but even in
Hmm.
other aspects.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from just, I don't know, like when we talked about talking to yourself, having insightful conversations, I feel like we both had a fair share of that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's where that calm comes from.
Hmm. Just one question, right? Maybe the final question for today
Uh huh.
is that with this podcast, right? Because now already everything is so meta.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, would you go with your online alibi or name, or would you like to use your real name?
Wow.
Not the full name, but like just.
Uh, that is a good question.
Yeah.
I would say that I would want to go with my online name,
Hmm.
and I think my reason for that is because maybe more clout. I don't know. Like, you know, people will be like, "Oh, it's this guy.
Hmm.
You know, he does other shit." But also because I can have a whole podcast about why my username is this.
Hmm.
You know, like there's a lot of story behind uh, having a persona and like not a persona but an alias
Hmm.
and
Maybe we
not
should
one.
let people know who you are then, or who we are. To be honest, at the end of the day, I don't think we really introduced ourselves.
That's true. We really didn't. That kind of
Yeah.
shows how unprepared we were
Yeah.
and unscripted. Yeah. But yeah, I think you should start first so that I can.
No, I feel like I also am very comfortable with my online name or online person. I feel like it sort of has become my safer place. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, which is
Well,
masked.
yeah. Uh, if you saw enough of the game already, you would see our username. So, you know,
Oh yeah.
Masked is Masked and I am Mustang.
But,
We have more complicated usernames on Twitch. But like
yeah.
we could also vaguely mention that we met through Twitch,
We did,
as
yes.
in I was in his stream, he was in mine,
Yeah,
yeah, and I was on his podcast. And
that's
you're like,
true.
oh wow, interesting, you're interesting talking wise, so we'll make a podcast, and here we
Yeah,
are.
we are following the meta.
I'll tell you now. This is unique, right? Again, like you said, unique doesn't mean good necessarily, but
Yeah.
I haven't seen this level of unpreparedness in a podcast before. So maybe,
Hmm. Maybe that will be our thing. Just having scuffed podcast.
yeah, pretty much.
Hmm. Let's see. Let's see how YouTube gobbles this up.
Oof, that's true. Somewhere we'll tell ourselves that we also do it because we have fun doing it. I mean, it is true.
I mean, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if things go better, I guess we'll dive into more of our lives. And
Yeah, we have a
what?
bunch of like, we have enough content for like a few episodes for sure.
Oh yeah,
Right,
100%.
like different game
Yeah.
ideas and different topics.
Yeah.
So this won't be a
And
one-off
this is
thing.
not even like talking about politics. Then that'll be like at least 3 seasons.
That will be more impactful once
Yeah. Which
we
may
have,
or may not happen, and that's fine.
and that's fine. Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe that should be the podcast name. It's okay. It's fine.
Unfazed podcast or something.
Hmm. Nah, probably will be phased someday. So let's not be
Yes.
super cocky about it. We're already super confident.
True. Like we said, we think about it post
Yeah.
podcast.
I feel like you should just take us off the cliff to end the podcast.
Take us what?
Off the cliff. Anyways, it's too late now. There's no cliff anymore.
Oh,
But that's
so
okay.
are we doing an outro,
Hmm.
or are we gonna abruptly end somewhere?
Maybe we should have an outro, right?
Yeah, sure.
Again, we'll figure it out. But for now, I think we'll sign off.
Sign
Good.
off. That's the best way to tell what generation Max is from.
Wow. I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. It just sounds like a very 2000s term.
Probably yes, to be honest.
But yeah, it was definitely what we expected it to be,
Hmm.
and that means that we didn't expect much.
True. You've seen the movie Tarzan the Wonder Car, right? This feels like the
Oh,
scene
for sure.
from that movie. The car also feels like Tarzan का car.
You know, when you mention it, you're very right. Very
Yeah.
true.
पता है कुछ तो भी एक scene होता है, right? Where they are like on the beach or something at the end. I'm not even sure if I remember that movie well, but I remember like oddly being near the sea. But yeah,
If it brings good memories, that's what matters.
true. Time to commit police suicide or whatever it's called.
But yeah, if anyone watched this all the way, you know, big thanks.
Yeah. Damn,
And
yeah.
it's definitely going to be
Get help.
more of this. Get help. And you know, if you're not a friend of Mast yet, who knows? I mean, Mast, I'll not promote your business. That's a choice that you should make. But
Wait, I have a business?
do you?
Oh, you
Did you-
mean my clinical psychologist?
Yes.
thingy.
Yes, you know. I think that's what
Oh,
you
yeah.
think when
I'm
someone
a
says get
clinical
help.
psychologist, yes. That's why I say get help most of the times.
Yeah, so he's not being mean. He's literally, you know, looking out for you.
True.
But yeah, you know, we'll be doing more of these. It's definitely fun for us to talk about shit too
Yeah.
and play random games.
Yeah.
The next one will probably have a different video game happening in the background. Maybe more chaotic, maybe more chill. We don't know.
Yep.
And you know, if there's any part that you guys liked, you can let us know. in the comments.
down
Yeah,
below.
I have some YouTuber experience, but yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Any last words, Mast?
Not really. Might have COVID. Let's see.